In this picture, we're looking at the synthesis of ATP, and we're looking from the top down, and we're looking at that the rotation. We're looking at the F1 FO ATP synthase from above, and we're looking down into that C ring, and we're looking down into the center of it, and we're watching how ATP is released. And we should remember that these are enzymes, and that there are conformational changes happening here. So let's notice that the gamma rotation of the gamma subunit causes a conformational change in the alpha and beta subunits. And remember, the alpha and the beta subunits are what are below it. They are in the matrix, and the alpha and beta subunits are what are part of the generator, which is the enzyme which is in the matrix, whereas the FO, which is the motor, and that is the protein pore and motor, which is in the inner mitochondrial membrane. Remember, it's part transporter and part enzyme. So these alpha and beta units will be releasing the ATP, but notice that first it is loose at the top. Look on the top left, as it twists it changes, and then moving down to the right, the ATP, you can see that that's the second section, and then finally number 3, ATP is released. So you can see how this process results in the release of ATP through enzymatic action, which allows for a conformational change. It actually becomes tighter, and then it twists, if I'm understanding what's happening. So what was happening is ADP is then becoming ATP, and then it's releasing, and then we see the same thing coming around again. So this is how this twisting action works, using the alpha and beta subunits, and how the gamma section at the top is rotating. So good to know that. And so let's move on, and we're getting close to the glycolysis. We're not quite there yet, but we should remember these important parts. And before finishing on this slide, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the regulation of electron transport. In the cell, the ETC is tightly coupled to ATP synthesis. What it means is that we don't want to consume excess oxygen or make excess ATP, so because it wastes energy, so we look for a balance. So when there are high levels of ADP, this stimulates an increase in ATP. When there is a lot of ATP, there is less ADP. Why? Because we don't need it. So what happens is, if you have a lot of ADP, it means that that ATP is low. So low levels of ADP equals high levels of ATP. This respiratory control prevents the unnecessary oxygen consumption when ATP is adequate, because we can't store ATP. Electron transport and oxygen consumption increase when ADP becomes plentiful. Why? Because ATP is low, so we need more oxygen so that we can start the process. Again, if we have a lot of ADP, then it means that ATP is low. We're building it up, and if we have low levels of ATP, it means that we have enough ATP. The electron transport and oxygen consumption decrease, however, when AD becomes limited. Why? Because we have enough ATP. So any condition that slows or blocks electron transport will slow the synthesis of ATP. And so ADP would then increase. So remember this balance. Also, When NAD plus is high, there is an increase in the cycle, and when NADH is high, there is a decrease in the cycle. And the cell will always be monitoring these levels.